This is CBC Vancouver News.
If that ain't danger close, I don't know what is. Holy
Tonight on CBC Vancouver News, the desperate battle continues from garden hoses to helicopters. People across BC do what they can to battle the blazes and save their beloved memories. Also, BC port workers vote on a proposed agreement to end their long-running labor dispute. And India's first Broadway-style musical makes its way to Vancouver. Good evening, I'm Zahra Premji. Thanks for joining us tonight. Dan is on assignment. We begin northeast of Kamloops, where rapidly spreading fires are threatening properties around Adams Lake. Witnesses say flames are moving like burning tornadoes. And as Mira Baines tells us, some picturesque communities are now the latest portraits of BC's wildfire situation.
If that ain't danger close, I don't know what is.
Desperate measures as a man tries to use a garden hose to protect his home on the edge of Adams Lake. This wildfire is the latest in BC to threaten a popular tourist area.
It was the wind that was the real game changer that turned the situation from really nothing serious to it was amazing how far the fire spread in a couple hours.
The community is only accessible by boat. A small ferry took many to safety. Nearly 100 properties now under evacuation order by Thursday afternoon.
All evacuees except those residents who elected on their own volition to stay. Everyone has now been moved across. However, the ferry will be running continuously in order to support the wildfire fighters.
The BC Wildfire Service says the fire was moving at 50 kilometers an hour, fueled by strong winds.
Wind shift developed into some pretty extreme fire behavior developing into the evening and overnight.
Oh my God.
Windy conditions also pushed another fire down a mountain Tuesday night.
Well, that's my house gone. I ain't surviving that, is it?
And into cabins near Gun Lake, about a 4-hour drive north of Whistler.
Holy.
Paul Kenya was forced to flee when flames suddenly intensified.
It was like this wind came through that I've never experienced in my life. It was like heat and a whirlwind and a tornado all mixed into one. There were giant branches flying through the air.
That fire is still out of control as the province struggles with a record year of forests burned.
We will continue to do what it takes and to spend whatever it takes to fight these wildfires and support communities through these evacuations.
With a long weekend ahead, the BC Wildfire Service is warning people to be vigilant and stay safe.
That's a CBC's Mira Baines. Meanwhile, a wildfire closed a portion of Highway 3 west of Osoyoos earlier today. The closure stretched between Osoyoos and Kiramias, but it has now reopened. Officials say there was limited visibility in the area due to smoke from the Eagle Bluff wildfire. It put people under evacuation alerts and orders after it crossed the Canada-U.S. border from Washington state on Saturday. Drivers are warned to expect delays on the highway.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
All right, I know we have lots of questions when it comes to the drought, the fires, the weather. So let's bring in our weather and climate specialist, Darius Mahdavi. Darius, what can we expect for the days, hours, and weeks coming up?
Well, the province released a new drought map just this morning. You can see that even since last week, we have gotten worse in some areas. We've gotten more red, level 4 areas, especially throughout the southern interior. Now, every week that they've released a drought map in the last month or so, it has gotten worse. And so I wouldn't expect that trend to change anytime soon, especially because we're not expecting any really major inputs of rain really consistently over a long time period, which is what we'd need to change the situation that we're seeing. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about how this impacts the fire danger rating, because they're very tightly connected. What the drought is doing is setting a really high baseline for what our fire danger is. Now, rain inputs can bring the fire danger down temporarily, but as we see, it bounces back really quickly as soon as that rain dries out. We're really elevating our risk very consistently. Now, if we take a look at what we're seeing, what we saw across the province earlier today, we still have this low pressure system off the coast, not really going to be that important until probably later this week into next week. We have that trough that has really shrunk back, really only affecting the northeast now. And we have this high pressure system that has grown and moved into the province, that ridge of high pressure, bringing really clear conditions through the province today. And we can expect the same tomorrow. Really, just any measurable rainfall is going to be in the north, and even there, it's mostly trace amounts. Now, we can see this in our forecast for tomorrow. Plenty of clear skies in the south, and now including the central interior. Not really even any clouds to speak of, just some rain in the northeast, even the northwest, very clear. And that's the same thing here in Vancouver through the weekend. It's not until next week we might start to see Zahra's favorite, a bit of rain.
All right, thank you. I hope you can give me some of that Mr. Rain over there, Darius.
Me too.
BC's police watchdog has found no police wrongdoing and won't recommend charges in the shooting death of activist Danny Cooper last November. The decision has left the 27-year-old's family, friends, and community calling for changes to how police respond to people in mental health crises. The Independent Investigations Office found that the unnamed RCMP officer who shot Cooper twice acted lawfully and justifiably, given that Cooper was advancing towards him with a knife. That's from Director Ronald McDonald. The poet, writer, and activist died after being shot twice by a North Vancouver RCMP officer, according to the report made public today. The Cooper family is calling for expanded de-escalation training for police and more funding for non-police interventions for people in mental health distress, just as Cooper did before they died. Friends of a family whose child was killed by a falling tree in BC last weekend are speaking out. It happened last Saturday while the family was camping at a provincial park south of Peachland. 3-year-old Cash Baker was killed. A family friend says it has been understandably devastating.
But this was the absolute worst, the most trauma, complete chaos, absolutely devastating situation.
The family is still coming to terms with the devastating loss of their young son. BC port workers have begun voting on the deal that could end their long-running labor dispute. The decision is whether to ratify the agreement recommended by negotiators. Our CBC's Renee Filipponi has more on the proposed deal.
Membership of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union will be voting for the next 2 days on this latest agreement that has been recommended by their leadership. Many are hoping they will approve it. It would end the dispute and bring some stability to BC ports. There has been a lot of back and forth between the union and the employer over recent weeks. The first tentative deal was initially rejected by the Longshore Caucus, a larger group of union leaders, and never made it to a full membership vote. They later approved it, and it went to that vote, but failed last week. Membership took issue with its lack of job protection from contracting out and automation. But it didn't take long for a new deal to be reached by both sides. Just days later, it was announced in a joint statement on Sunday, and they said they got to this new agreement with the help of the Canada Industrial Relations Board. And that is what is being put before workers over the next couple of days. On social media, union members who had voiced opposition to the previous deal appear to be on board with this one, urging workers to support it. According to reporting by the Tyee, the last deal was rejected over one simple word, normal, that it said, quote, normal maintenance will continue to be done by union members. Workers felt that word was just too vague. There has been a lot of pressure from the business community to get a final resolution to this situation. Picket lines were up for 13 days in early July, and estimates are it stalled billions of dollars in cargo from coming in or out of 30 port terminals. The results of this membership vote are expected either sometime Friday evening or early Saturday morning. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, days after the Prime Minister said housing is not a primary federal responsibility, one of his senior BC MPs is touting federal involvement in new rental housing in his Vancouver South riding.
This is a shared responsibility from every level of government. Our government has put actually increasing supply in our country as one of our top priorities. And this is just one of the programs that not only we have announced, but have actually executed quite well.
Minister of Emergency Preparedness Harjit Sajjan announced the building of 422 purpose-built rental homes in 3 projects in the city with help from Ottawa. Developer West Group says 178 of the homes will be long-term rentals at below market rates, while 47 will be even less expensive. Ottawa says it plans to welcome 500,000 immigrants a year by 2025 as cities and communities across the country face severe housing shortages, high rents, and costly home prices. Well, a schoolhouse more than a century old has arrived at its new home at the Capilano Reserve.
We had to travel through land and sea to get here and bring this home, and as you can see behind me, we did some cultural ceremonial work on the ground blessing last week, but today you see some of our families sharing song and doing a little bit of ceremony to make sure the pathways are clear for this home. It's coming through our village right now.
The old Henry Hudson building at the corner of Cornwall Avenue and Maple Street was going to be knocked down to make way for a new elementary school, but the Squamish Nation stepped forward to preserve and relocate it so it can be used as a school. The entire building was lifted and moved by barge to its new home, as we showed you last night. Well, Taylor Swift's popular Eras Tour is coming to Canada, but sad news for Swifties in BC. No dates have been announced for our province. 6 are scheduled for Toronto for next November. Our Liam Britton set out to ask the music industry insiders what that's about and whether Taylor and Vancouver are ever getting back together.
So good to be back in Canada.
It's been long rumored, but today Canadians learned Taylor Swift will be bringing her wildly successful Eras Tour north of the border. The tour, which is already estimated to gross more than $1 billion, has boosted local economies and even caused a small earthquake during her recent shows in Seattle. But while today's announcement was welcomed by many Canadians, for West Coast Swifties, it hit different. Turns out Toronto is hogging all those shows, 6 nights in Toronto, and for Vancouver's concert calendar, a blank space.
I feel like with big artists, they kind of do this thing all the time where they say they're going to Canada and it's always just Toronto.
Swift's superfan Larissa Vachon is all set to fly to LA to see her in concert. But she'd love to go again here in Vancouver and hopes Taylor decides to add local dates to the tour.
She cares about her fans a lot. Her fans are like the thing she loves the most and thanks the most for her career. And so to be able to accommodate more fans, she should go to more cities.
The Eras Tour has played big venues so far. Seattle's Lumen Field, capacity 68,000. In Toronto, Rogers Centre is the place to be with 49,000 seats. But Vancouver has plenty of venue choices too. BC Place with 54,000 seats. Rogers Arena can fit over 19,000.
It's just, it's a great spot, and I think Taylor would be really happy here.
Or a cozier spot, like the Fox Cabaret, capacity just under 300.
It's unique comparatively to some of the other places that she's played. I might say a little more intimate. You know what? We have a really good community here that will welcome her with open arms.
And if she does come to Vancouver, could it have political impacts? Tourism Minister Lana Popham has tried tweeting Taylor, asking her to come here. She said today she's hopeful Vancouver dates are still to be announced. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted at the Star too, asking her to play anywhere in Canada. We asked his office for comment about today's news. They declined. But we tried, so don't blame me. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, we caught up with some Vancouver Swifties and asked how they feel about the announcement. And for most of them, today they felt like a cruel summer and they just weren't able to shake it off.
What? That's not fair. We need some Taylor support here too, Us Vancouver, we like everybody. I grew up listening to her.
Well, it's kind of I can't lie. I would like her to come here. But I wouldn't be very excited for the crowd it would bring.
Why? Oh my God, you need to schedule here at concert. So we watch, it's so hard to go there. Like, it's so far.
I'm really disappointed. I'm from a tiny little town that's like 2 hours away. I rarely come into Van. The SkyTrain here was like a roller coaster. Like, I was so excited. And we're here for a concert tonight, actually. So that's about the only reason I come into town.
Well, India's first ever Broadway-style musical Mughal-e-Azam is coming to Vancouver. It tells an epic love tale between a prince and a courtesan based on a 1960 Bollywood film by the same title. CBC News caught up with the musical's directors, actors, and producers.
Mughal-e-Azam is the epic film from 1960s, the kind of scale that it was back in the days. And what project this is, it's a musical. It is a Broadway-style musical, first of its kind, and first of its scale to travel out of India, and also to be a traveling format to travel into 14 cities.
I think we have an extraordinary team. And it's very interesting that post-COVID, all of a sudden, the production got a different kind of an emotional feel than it was before COVID. So as the actors have grown, as they have matured, as they have, in many ways experienced more in life, they bring all that back onto the stage.
Every audience, they will come with that impression that, okay, we have seen the original Mughal-e-Azam. They will come with those impressions in the mind. But it's our challenge how to break it. And we took that challenge, and successfully we are doing in all the world. And now it's time for the Vancouver.
It feels unreal. Actually, it's been 7 years now, and we've been doing it. I think this would be, we've actually crossed we've done more than 250 shows already, but it doesn't feel like it. It just feels like yesterday.
My favorite moment is the Qawwali song. When I enter for the Qawwali, before that there is a scene when I am just facing Anarkali, telling her things which are there in my heart, taunting her and all that. I love that scene. And yes, when we start the Qawwali and Salim is sitting in front, it's a duel which is going on through songs. I enjoy that moment.
Well, one of Canada's best-known artists is retiring. The reason behind the difficult decision after the break. Stick around. Thanks for sticking with us during our commercial-free live stream. School might not be on your mind yet, but with just over a month until kids are back in the classroom, the Doug Ford government in Ontario is revealing some changes. It's part of the province's push for what it calls back-to-basics education. Mike Crawley.
It's the 1st of August, smack dab in the middle of summer vacation. So back to school is likely the furthest thing from the minds of students or teachers in Ontario right now. But someone who is looking ahead to the new school year, Education Minister Stephen Lecce, announcing new measures that he says will refocus school boards on academic achievement and the development of life and job skills.
Here we go. Let's start with a really hard one.
The centerpiece of the reforms, a new reading curriculum.
This change is really important because there were a lot of kids who really weren't getting what they needed in the primary grades of school.
So Nigel says...
The emphasis is on phonics, teaching kids to sound out words.
There's a lot of evidence to show that that is just the most efficient way to teach kids to read. So yes, and that has been really missing from the curriculum before.
You had so many good numbers.
This comes after recent overhauls of the math curriculum and the science curriculum. Now, starting in September, every Ontario school board will have to report its progress on the Back to Basics priorities.
We have no issue with being transparent about what happens in our schools because we know that we have one of the best public education systems in this world.
Boards will also be required to post their stats on student absences, suspensions, and expulsions, and information about professional development days, including the topics, content, and speakers, at least 2 weeks ahead of time.
If parents want to see what's happening, I think they should have access to that information. Professional development days should be meaningful and should help to allow people working in the classroom to meet the needs of the students.
Another change, the government will let Teachers College students work as supply teachers before finishing their training. Under the current rule, student teachers can only work under supervision.
In front of the classroom on your own should not happen while you are still in Teachers College. You should be with another teacher who's going to be your mentor or your guide.
We requested an interview with the Education Minister, but were told he was not available. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, one of Canada's best-known artists says the time has come to stop performing live.
He reminds you of a legend that you had known as a child.
Today, Buffy Sainte-Marie announced that she's made the difficult decision to pull out of all scheduled performances for the foreseeable future. She says arthritic hands and a recent shoulder surgery means she cannot perform to her standards and sends her regrets to her fans, family, and band. Sainte-Marie was set to perform at the Burnaby Blues and Roots Festival on August 12th. The Oscar and Juno-winning musician has written and performed for decades and been an outspoken advocate for Indigenous rights. Well, there's a lot of excitement ahead of Pride celebrations in Vancouver this weekend. Communities of diverse stripes will be marching in the parade and taking part in all sorts of events, and CBC will be joining them. The Vancouver Pride Society has changed the parade route this year. Here's how it's going to go. Marchers will start at Davie Street in Denman, then they head down Beach Avenue and Pacific Street until they get to the new festival site at Concord Community Park in False Creek. Organizers intended to make the route more accessible for people and have events closer to transit and other ways to get around. We hope to see you there. Well, the Royal Canadian Mint is issuing a new commemorative loonie designed by a Victoria-based artist. It's in honor of the trailblazing female engineer Elsie McGill. Claire Watson was selected by the Mint last year to craft a design for the coin to honor McGill. Vancouver-born McGill, also known as the Queen of Hurricanes, was the first female aeronautical engineer in the world. 3 million of the commemorative coins were introduced into circulation at the start of the month. All right, here's a live shot of Harbour Centre. We've got more local news coming up for you in just a moment. Stick around.
Just the way that process works. It's so slow.
Eric Gander is a Surrey taxidermist. He and his 2 sons are well known for their work in transforming animals, fish, and birds into lifelike trophies. Lately, the shop has been doing a special kind of sideline business. A few people have been bringing Gander pets that have died. It seems they can't bear the thought of parting with the pet, so they seek to have it preserved.
We get maybe 2-3 calls a week, of which maybe 1 finally goes through with it.
The process of preserving the pet involves freeze drying. The animal is placed in a very cold vacuum chamber where, over a period of days, every trace of moisture is removed from its body. The animal retains its regular shape, but is impervious to decay.
So with this, where we actually remove nothing, we just it looks more lifelike. It has the proportions and everything is just absolutely perfect.
Gander says it costs about $350 to process a cat in this fashion. And because of the costs involved, the service is usually restricted to small pets, cats and dogs.
Yeah, on the freeze-dry process, we can go just cats or small dogs up to maximum 20 pounds. After that, you have to be conventional taxidermy, which is extremely expensive and time-consuming, and we actually don't recommend it.
The freeze-dry method is indispensable in retaining the fragile details in fish and animals.
Then the head itself was actually detached The head itself was freeze-dried in the freeze-dry machine. We retained the real gills, the gill covers, gill rakers, and the tongue. Everything is real and freeze-dried.
So all that detail would be hard to recreate without.
Just about impossible to recreate that good, plus extremely time-consuming and expensive.
These muskrats, for instance, were freeze-dried before being touched up. And they do look more lifelike than if they were merely fur stretched over a mold. We had a final question to the taxidermist. Would he have a family pet freeze-dried?
No, I wouldn't. Personally, I wouldn't. I think if I had a dog or a cat that I'm closely attached to, once it dies, I keep my pictures, I keep the memory of it, and I'll get a new one with the money.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC Vancouver is proud to be the exclusive media partner of the 8th Annual Monsoon Festival of the Performing Arts, celebrating South Asian art, music, dance workshops, and performances. And who will win the search for BC's Best Lake? Voting continues this week with the winner announced August 4th. Sign up to win the ultimate CBC prize pack at cbc.ca/bestlakebc.
Well, every week, our own Lisa Christensen gives us a peek of the most exciting events happening around the Lower Mainland. This week, she's swinging by a planetarium.
Did you know BCIT had a planetarium? I didn't know. This week on Getting Out, we're about to get some music and some lasers at the planetarium. I think a lot of people are surprised to find out there's a planetarium at BCIT.
A lot of people at BCIT were surprised to find out. There were people who taught here for 20 years and didn't realize there was. This was actually the first planetarium built in Vancouver.
Now, I think for a lot of people coming in, this is kind of the focal point. What are we looking at?
This is an Armand Spitz star projector. It's an analog star projector. There's only 2 of these left in Canada, very few in the world, actually.
So tell us about the shows coming up this Saturday night.
First show is an astronomy show because we're astronomy freaks. We run those for free, actually. And that's called Phantom of the Universe, narrated by Tilda Swinton. After that, we go into Vidlaser Zeppelin, which is our newest show, followed by Dark Side of the Moon. Always have to have the Dark Side of the Moon. And Girl is the late show. We'll be doing more shows in September 30th and on a full schedule once we get into the fall.
All right, so can we hear a little Led Zeppelin and see a little Led Zeppelin?
Absolutely.
And here are some other activities you can get up to this weekend. We've got Pride at the Pier, LGBTQ2+ themed activities at the shipyards in North Vancouver. And there's Squamish Days, Logger Sports Festival, family-friendly activities and logger competitions, all taking place in Squamish. And we've got the Harmony Arts Festival in West Vancouver. It's an arts festival featuring live music and art displays, all taking place in West Vancouver. And that's been Getting Out for this week. So don't forget, get out or get in somewhere where you can have a look up. Okay. We got it?
That'll do.
All right, who's coming to BCIT with me? Just went to school, had no idea there was a planetarium there. Thanks, Lisa. And that's your late news for this balmy Thursday. Thanks so much for sharing your evening with me. Now, before you let that head hit the pillow, head over to our website, cbc.ca/b for that one last scroll to see what else is making headlines. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Stay safe and have a good night.